Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Robert Baylor, Director of Communications at NUCA. Welcome to our latest Webinar Wednesday, sponsored by NUCA National Partner Caterpillar. Today's webinar, Increasing Job Site Efficiencies, is being presented by Scott Knoblauch. Scott's lively presentation will look at site equipment evaluations and what is needed for a job, possible equipment issues encountered during excavations, truck loading techniques, machine operations, and other processes that, with attention and training, can lead to greater job site efficiencies. Scott's advice goes across all equipment makes and addresses the common efficiency problems faced by all NUCA members on active job sites. Scott brings 25 years of experience working on job sites, both inside and outside the United States. He presently works for NUCA National Partner Caterpillar Incorporated as their global senior load and haul, earth moving, and compaction market professional based in Peoria, Illinois.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate everybody jumping in here today. All righty, all right. Well, those of you that don't know me, there's my title there, and I know Bob choked a little bit on my title. It seems like every year I get a little more added on, and I graciously appreciate it. I love keeping busy. But what I thought I would do for you today, I know we were talking with Bob and Zach and Cheryl on the NUCA committee here a while back, and people have asked me over the years, what are some reoccurring themes that you see going to job sites and evaluating job sites? And a big part of my job is I work with our dealers, our customers, and our districts on when big jobs come up, which equipment to use, how are we going to set up this job, how are we going to move this material. I work a lot in heavy earth moving, a lot in power and generation, coal piles, stuff like that. And obviously underground utilities, started working with that about 7-8 years ago, and all industries. So over the years, over the past 25 years, I've been able to collect a lot of things and a lot of reoccurring themes that I want to share with you all. And hopefully you can get one thing out of this. If you learn one thing today, then I deem this a success to who wouldn't have it. A while back, I was on a project where we were looking at the perfect hauling system or load and haul system for job sites. So we had to go out and interview a lot of customers and companies as well. And one of the top things that I come up with, I'm going to roughly Hilbonicize this for you. So when customers tell us, they look at a piece of equipment, here's what they want. First one, I need something that's going to do more than what I am buying it to do. It's utilization. I'm going to need something that's going to be able to operate 365 days a year because that's how much I want to work or how I can work. I need help with price ownership or whatever. In other words, I don't want to pay for it. Obviously, we know that's not going to happen, but we need help there. I need it to be easy to operate system. Here's a big one. We see this all the time. We are losing operator capability. All of us face that day in and day out, no matter what our businesses are. So this is a huge one. I need something that's never going to break down. And here's the one that I always work with the most. I perceive that I may not have the lowest cost per unit system out there, whether it's a loading tool or a hauling tool or whatever, the tool to do the job. But I'm using what I got because this is what I've got. Okay, I can understand that. I can live with that. Let's work with that. We all can't live in a Cinderella world all the time. So one thing that I looked at, now this is actual data. This is, when you look at it, I know it says 500,000 cubic meter project. And again, folks, I cover worldwide now, mainly in Americas, but I do get out globally. But if we look on a 500 cubic meter or 500 cubic yard project, if I can just save 3 cents a cubic yard or cube, I can save $15,000 on that project. If I can shave 20 cents off of per cubic yard or meter, look how much money I can save on that 500,000 meter cubic project. Folks, I was working on a project the other day that's 55 million. That's a big job. So anytime we can save anything, anywhere, it's going to be huge remarks. So remember that. So a lot of time over the years, people ask me, say, what's the best machine day in and day out to do all these different jobs that I do? I wish I had a Swiss Army knife, guys. I think we all do. But the one thing is, there is no one specific earth moving job or loading tool that's going to give you the lowest cost per X for all your jobs. It's just not going to happen. It's a combination of everything together as we look at that. So when I interviewed many different customers, and I carry this with me today, especially when I go out and look at a new job site. I don't care if it's an underground site or if it's a mining application or building a hospital or a Costco or whatever. When I first interviewed customers, there was about 50 different things that come up, what we look at when we start bidding a job. And those of you know me know that I work also with a good friend of mine on earth moving and a farm as well. So a lot of this, what I'm going to talk about here, can apply to many, many different industries, whether it be farming, whether it be underground, whether it be heavy industries. You decide where you can apply this, and hopefully we can get something out of it. But all these different things come into play, and I narrowed it down to like about 6 different questions I ask myself when I look on these job sites, or I'm bidding a job site myself. One of the things I look at is what type of material I got to move. What is it? What are my underfoot conditions? What's the site look like? Is I'm on a hill? Am I wet? Am I dry? Is it uneven? What's going on here? What do I got to do? How much do I have to move? How far do I have to move this material? I don't care if I'm just digging a trench and so forth, and I'm just swinging to the side. Moving that material. How far do I got to move it? Maybe I have to move it 20 feet. Maybe I have to move it 20 miles. Don't know yet. Okay. What are the job site production's requirements? How much time have I got to do this job? That's a huge one. And probably the one most important that I don't have up here is the one I always ask, what am I doing with this material? Now, obviously, in heavy industries, I'm building something underground. Hopefully, utilities, we're putting it back where we got it after we put in the line or the tile or whatever it is we're working with here. But what are we doing with this material? So for the work that you do, where is the best place to start on your job site efficiency? We look at all these factors. We're looking at jobs and bidding jobs and actually running jobs today. There's another big part of my job that I do is once the site is up and running, I come out and look for areas of improvement. I hate to say things that's going wrong or mistakes because that's such a harsh word. But I'm looking for areas of opportunity. What can we do to help improve upon this job site? Biggest ones I come across every day is getting back to basics. So many times we have new people join on site, and even when I get on a new job site, sure, I've moved material before. Do I knew everything about moving material? Heavens no. Just when I think I do, as well as that earth moving will get you. It'll come up and get you. But one of the things we look at is what are we going to use this tool for? Utilization of it. Here's another one: expending the minimum amount of energy to move the maximum amount of material. I'm laying a foundation here as far as we get into the rest of the presentation. Moving the materials over the shortest possible distance. There's a reason this is up here. Sometimes I get out on the site and I say, help me understand why we're hauling long and returning short. There's got to be a good reason here. Maybe it's ground pressure and I'm crossing a tile or something. Got to be something here. If not, let's address this issue. Moving materials once. So many times when we get many different contractors work on the same site, communication. So many times we have people dumping material on our site or something, and then we got to move it again, and just one of these things to look at here. So one of the things I want to start with is those of you that do machine walkarounds and group huddles. Let's talk about group huddles. Every morning, toolbox talks, whatever. Folks, those are priceless. I have learned so much from each and every one of you when I've been on these job sites, doing these group huddles every morning. Just the other day, I moved on a job site, and I was helping this individual move some dirt. And, they didn't have group huddles in the morning. I said, hold a time out here, guys. I said, sure, I've moved dirt before, but I haven't moved dirt here. How is it that you guys want this thing to happen? How do you want this dirt to move? What's the process here? Even when we get new people hiring on new folks into our operations, these group huddles are the most important thing that I can stress day in and day out. We just can't have enough of them. I know some companies that have them morning, noon, and night, which is great because I've seen the younger people coming in. I asked them, I said, how do you like that? Is that a little overwhelming? Absolutely not, because now I know exactly what I need to do. And if I got questions that I can talk about it over lunchtime, and then at the end of the day, I can follow up. Hey, how did I do? What do I need to do better? And so forth. Those are priceless. The way I grew up with my grandfather, hey, get on that machine, let's go, let's move some dirt, and I learned the hard way when I did something wrong. I heard about it, There's probably a few of us on the phone who can attest to that. But these group huddles are everything. There's another question I get is, when do you conduct a machine walk around? Folks, what's been drilled in my head is anytime I get on or off that machine, not just in the morning, not just in the evening, but anytime I get on or off that machine, I'm going to do a walk around. You never know when something starts breaking down, or you may catch a bolt coming loose or a small leak, whatever it may be. if you get off the machine to take a morning break or get off to eat lunch or whatever. So every time you get on or off that machine, you should do a very quick, very thorough walk around. One time that I was come back after lunch and hopped on a machine. I was in the southwestern part of the United States. And unfortunately, there were people underneath that machine getting out of the hot sun. Well, if I didn't do a walk around, just simple things like that. Have you ever had problems with operators filling out their machine inspection sheets? Now, let me ask you, some of you may have these sheets that you fill out that the operators, when they get on the machine every morning, they check the oil, check that box off, look at this, check that box off, so forth. This particular site that I was on, the owner come up to me and says, I've had this problem where people are just filling out these sheets. I said, okay, I can take care of that. He said, really? I said, yeah, let's try something here. So I said, you need to hire me. I said, give me $1. I'm working for you now. I'm your equipment manager. And give me the opportunity to hire or fire somebody right off the bat. And we're just going to play a little game here. I said, okay. So I went out about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I taped a $5 bill to every one of the inspection points on this piece of equipment. And then, shift started about 6:30, and they did their walk arounds or their huddles and so forth. And 7 o'clock, the machines fired off, and away they went. And then about 10 o'clock, I come out, looked at this machine. I asked the operator for their inspection sheet. Oh yeah, right here it is. Everything was all checked out, looking good, and so I proceeded to start doing it myself. And I said, "Ooh, there's $5 bills. Take the oil dipstick here, the engine oil. Here's another $5 bill over here on the transmission." Okay, so you lied to me. Well, there was a possibility. Now, this unfortunately was this operator. He was the best operator this guy had. He really was good, but very quickly, when he knew his job was on the line, he never had a problem with that guy filling out his operator sheets again. Just a little tidbit you can try, and I learned that from another individual. I like to pass on what I've learned over the years, But that one I thought was very effective, and even just simple things like reading the book behind the seat, the operation maintenance manual. So many times when I was in the ag division, there was on the combine, there was always this issue we had. And we always tell everybody, read the books, read the books. Well, I would put a certificate on page 77, whatever it may be, that I was wanting them to look at. And you'd be surprised how many people have so many days or hours or whatever would call me and say, hey, I found your deal. So reading that operator's manual tethered behind the seat or wherever it's at is priceless. I drive my brothers nuts every time we buy a new piece of equipment because I go through that thing, I highlight it, I tab it, I mark it, everything right there. So important, something to remember. So when would you not conduct a machine walk around? What are you talking about? You just spent 5 minutes talking about doing a machine walk around and how important it is. Well, here's probably a pretty good example when you really wouldn't want to get out and do a machine walk around. Now, those are 2 baby alligators, and mama is around there somewhere. So yeah, I think I would just forego that one right now. There's another situation. We were down in Panama, and we come on after lunch, and our excavator instructor was doing his walk arounds, and he seen these panther tracks or whatever it was, and this is a baby panther track. So again, and it rained over lunch. So within a matter of 30 minutes, this panther had walked through the job site. Okay, yeah, let's be a little careful here. Watch your surroundings. There's another big deal. Operators are some of the most talented people in the world. This operator here caught this snake. This was again in Panama. This is some sort of a pit viper. Somebody told me it was like one of the 5th deadliest snakes in the world. He catches this thing in his bucket, for crying out loud. Calls me over and says, hey, take a look at this. Those of you that know me, I am scared to death of snakes. I see one snake, I can run a 100-yard dash in about 0.02 seconds flat. Get that thing out of there, release it back to the wild. Watch your surroundings. It's a good story here. I was down in Brazil taking production studies on some articulated trucks and so forth. And we were in a gold mine. And this is down south central Brazil. And we were stripping overburden material off. And of course, the safety manager did an excellent job. They gave me those rock chaps and everything. And of course, I had my hard hat and all that stuff and steel-toed shoes. And about a day later, he came out and I said, how do you get along? I said, well, it was very nice of you to give me these rock chips because I'm always, tripping around, dinging up my shins and, climbing on equipment, stuff like that. I really appreciate that. He says, no, senor. That is not for La Rocas. I said, come on, I understand. What are you talking about here? serpientes, como, what? The licobras, snakes. He goes, yes. Oh my goodness gracious, know your surroundings. So every time a truck would come in there, I would run in there and take some density checks and monitor the situation and look at the soils and so forth. And every time I went in, the operator would reach down and grab his camera, waiting to see when I was going to get bit. So rule number one, just remember this when you're traveling abroad and you see a sugarcane field, cobras love sugarcane fields. So watch that. Be careful. Understand. Nobody told me that. That gentleman right beside me, he was with me every day. I think he was probably going to drag me out of there, but I guarantee if I'd have seen one snake, I would have ran back to the U.S. in about 2 hours. I wouldn't have stopped. Here's a situation where we had to build a road out through here, again, down South America, and I needed to know the depth so we could figure some how our quantities to fill in this road. Well, how are you going to measure the depth? Well, you can see the fishing pole. That was the first thing that come to my mind. Well, we're sitting there, and of course, I put a hook on there to see what was in there, and I got to thinking to myself, Central America, this is a warm body of water. What is swimming around in here? Piranha or something? I don't know. Okay, exit stage right, get out of there. There's probably a good reason when you walk around. Probably couldn't get the dipstick out. This was a cold start test up in the Arctic Circle. That truck did start, by the way. Pretty cold. There's another situation. Now, this operator made it out. It wasn't me. However, I've done things like this before, but that operator made her out fine. But the thing I noticed about this picture is the light's still on and the engine's still running. So everything got out of there okay, and I guess we were all right. But knowing your surroundings and where you're at all times is priceless, priceless. So getting back to the machine walk-arounds, how do I know if I have correct tire air pressure? There's one of the things that was instilled to me a long time ago. When that machine's empty, if you got 2 to 2.5 lugs contacting that ground, you're pretty close. You're pretty close. If it's less than that, obviously your tire pressure is too high. And obviously, if you got 3 to 4.5 lugs on the ground, it's too low. When you get here's a good example of correct tire air pressure. Now, I ask yourself, how many people carry a tire air pressure gauge with you when you're doing your walk-arounds? So looking at these tires is huge. And as you're going to see when I get into some other data here, why I spend so much time on this. Here's a situation where you got 4.5 lugs on the ground. Scraper application. All right. Huge problem here. You got to, mostly when we see this, okay, we know we got a low tire, we need to get a gauge out or so forth. This chart right here, I received this a while back, many years ago, from a tire manufacturer. Every time we go to these trade shows, whether it be Con Expo or whatever trade show is in your area, I spend a lot of time with these tire manufacturers. There are some very, very smart individuals there, and they've got some fantastic information and materials to share with you. When you look at how many times you guys change your own oil in your vehicles and do your own service and so forth? Every time you rotate your tires, every time I rotate my tires, I throw a pressure gauge on there and I make sure I've got the correct air pressure in there. How many times have I ever had to let air out of a tire? Can't think of one. How many times am I putting in 4, 5, 10 pounds of air pressure in there? So look at that, 10% underinflated, you're going to lose 10% life. You get down to 30% underinflated, which is not that hard to come by, guys. We've seen this before. 70% of your tire life is gone. And if you overfill that, you could lose 10%. My wife heard me doing this presentation, or talking about this slide a while back, and bless her heart, she went home and she bought 2 cases of tire air pressure gauge and put it in all of our pieces of equipment. Every last one of them had 1 or 2 of them in the glove box. And then she proceeded to, she's the accountant for our operation too, for several of them. And she proceeded to look at the cost spent in tires alone in the past 5 years. It was astonishing how much. And just tire air pressure is unreal. Now, this is in heavy applications in a quarry truck, but this could be applied to underground utilities or utility trucks or anything. Over the life of that truck, you will spend the initial purchase price of truck and tire-related costs. Now, again, rigid frame truck, you can reman that thing 5, 6, 7 times. You'll get hundreds of thousands of hours on it. But just look at how much our tire costs are. And I ask you, when you get done with this presentation today, start looking at that. Look at your tire cost and see what you've had over the years. And could it be corrected? Now, one thing I've always said on any job site, control the water or it will control you. Whether you're digging a ditch or building a road or whatever, if we don't control that water, to stop our operation. If we don't keep the water out of our loading areas or where we're really putting the power to the ground and so forth, we're going to cut tires. Tires cut easier when they're wet. And again, this was a video clip given to me by a tire manufacturer. So what I want you to look at here, if you can see this running, the operator's got a knife on a dry tire and he's swinging. Now this tire hopefully has not got air in it, but he's swinging it on that knife with a dry tire. And he's very simply just going to take a water bottle and soak this down. See what happens. He's going to take that knife again. Very quickly, that knife goes in the side of that tire. 7 hits, he's embedded that knife in that tire. So you got to ask yourself, I don't care if we're using a backhoe loader, loading chip rock into a dump truck or loading 1-inch minus or whatever. If we've got a lot of rock on that ground and so forth, keeping that loading area clean was going to help us out a great deal, no doubt about that. TMPH, or 10 miles per hour. In other words, that tire's heating up. Are we overloading our equipment, whether it be a wheel loader doing a load and carry operation, or a backhoe loader, or a truck going down the road? How many times you going down the road on an interstate and see road gators laying all over the place? Well, that's the tire being let go here. We've got to watch this or keep an eye on this. Excess heat on those tires can be detrimental to the situation. Now, here's a picture of a truck that I was on. This could be anything, but unfortunately, this is a rigid frame truck. And as you see this video, I want you to look at the side of that tire down here. It looks like the slits on the side of a killer shark. This is what we call a Maypop. That's the tires of Maypop brand, a Maypop and a May not. Back a few years ago, I want to say, when was that tire shortage? Probably about 06 through 08, I think. We were digging up tires, everybody, and putting tires back on because we couldn't get good tires again. Got to be very, very careful when them sidewalls look like that. That is dangerous, very, very dangerous. So enough about the tires, but it's a huge issue. It's a very simple thing, keeping track of air pressure and clean the sites so we don't have the debris run on and so forth, and just managing those tire-related injuries to our equipment. And here's another one too. Last weekend, I was on the farm here, and I hooked up to 3 different trailers over the weekend. 3 different trailers. I'm going to ask you, how many trailers do you have in your operation? How many times you check the air pressure on those trailer tires? And look at the tire-related costs there. That's the one that was really a big one for us. Every time we would hook on a trailer, yeah, we'd do a walk around, and a good semi-driver can take his tire bill and hit that tire if you get a B flat. One guy, he said, yeah, B flat, that's about 88 pounds of pressure. Oh, you're kidding me. I threw a gauge on there, and guess what? He was right. He said, A minus, that's about 92 pounds of pressure. And so you want that A sharp when you get out of there. And he had it down to a science. I'm not that good. I got to throw a gauge at it. Anyway, I want to move into some of the equipment that we use on the job sites and so forth. And now some of us, this may apply to others and not apply to you, but someday you may get into this. You may remember this. Loaded haul distance. This chart here, I want you to take a picture of. Now, there's years and years and years of data put into this. When you're looking at track type tractors, you're getting up about pushing distance, pushing that material up about 500 feet. That's on the large ones. That's the 10s and 11s. On the probably 6, 7s, and 8s. If we get around that 250 foot range of pushing, that's about our maximum efficiency. We probably ought to think of something else. But if we're less than 250 feet, using a D6 size type tractor, whatever color it may be, that is effective. That's your most effective way to move dirt. And then, of course, your smaller tractors, get down into that D5s or less. If we need to stay around that 100, 150 foot range, it will be optimal. And when we start looking at articulated trucks, and we start getting out over about 3 kilometers or about 10,000 feet, that's about the point in time where when we look at an articulated truck, we probably ought to park him and look up in here to a rigid frame truck or even off-highway trucks or so forth. Just kind of keep this in the back of your mind here. But let's get back into the track type tractors here. And again, if we're down in that short range, we got to move this material. Even just the other day, I was working with an underground utility contractor, and we had to strip off some material so they could get down in there and run in a tile. So one of the things they had to push this material is right out about 250-foot max. And he'd never heard of these techniques before, so I wanted to talk to him a little about it. The biggest thing I see is, again, watch those distances. Try to push in first gear if all possible. I mean, very seldom should we be pushing in second gear. Big loads, slow push. So many times people think the faster we go with the dozer, the more productive it is. That's not necessarily the case at all. Load that blade up, let that tractor work, and keep her slow. And always try to avoid that third reverse. And again, I'm speaking Caterpillar. It's going to apply to all different colors here, but watch it going in reverse. 70% of your track wear comes going in reverse. So watch that speed going in reverse. For us, I always talk about 3R, avoid third gear reverse if you can. Only for emergency type situations and stuff like that. Obviously, you can read the other ones in there, but steering with the tilt centers, that helps avoid our track slip and so forth, and avoiding sharp turns. But again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Avoid third gear reverse. That one's in there a lot because it's huge, and minimizing your distance in reverse. Slot dozing technique. Now, this is a technique that people live by, and I certainly have been trained over the years. I hopped on a D6D clatterbox when I was 6 years old and started running equipment. I'm still learning today. And one of the things I learned very early is to dozing in a slot and moving that material. So you can see here, we started up top and started coming down here. We're starting to move all this material. And you can push 2/3 more of your blade capacity by working in a slot as if you're doing a dry pass every time. And another thing that comes into play is the dimension of that slot. How deep do we want to go when we first start pushing here? And we're going to get into pushing techniques in a little bit. I want to talk about that slot depth as well. Only about 1/3 of the blade, right where this headache rack starts, or the sod rack is what we call it. You know, we want to get up to about there in good cohesive material. If you're in light sandy material where it's very runny and it starts coming around the backside of that blade and you start running your tracks on it, you got to control your depth. You can't go near as deep. Now, if you're in heavy, wet, cohesive material, yeah, you can get as deep as you bury the whole tractor under the ground. You don't want to do that because eventually you got to remove these berms. Well, here's another thing on on speed versus depth. I'm going to hit this and let it go. So the bottom one, this is real data. The bottom one was going second gear, pushing all the time, going fast and trying to get done. And the top one was going slow in first gear. So you can see the top one, you got done a whole lot quicker and a lot more efficient than the bottom one. So this definitely tells you with a track type tractor, speed does not equal productivity, not at all. Go slow and have big pushes, fill that blade up. Operating techniques. When I first started using the dozer, I would go back each pass all the time. If I had to strip down a 20 by 20 area, 20 meters, 20 yards or whatever, you know, I would back up each time and then create another slot and go. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I didn't know. This is the way I was taught years ago, so I thought this was the way to do it. Well, again, 70% of your track wear comes in reverse here and speed. So a lot of times, yeah, I'd put her in the, you know, fastest gear to get back there and get another push going. Little did I know at that point in time, we were wearing out track quite a bit. Well, this is why. So when I first started joining with Caterpillar, we learned this technique right here we called back to front. Well, here's a load the blade and come up, get a blade full, and we carry that, pushing that material, and we dump it over to the side. That's a pretty clumpy material there. Somebody before earlier said, hope there ain't any people down below. No, usually we don't do that. We usually do a push pile. We put a pile and then we push a pile against the pile and knock it over. But you notice the problem with this technique when I'm pushing here, I'm pushing bank material against bank material. It's very hard on your equipment. It's very inefficient and consumes a lot of fuel. This is what we call back each pass. So very quickly, we come up with another fashion. This was when we started testing equipment, is when I learned this technique. We would go front to back. So we'd back up and we'd load the blade up. Well, now you're pushing bank material, loading that blade up against loose material. So it's much more efficient. Now you might ask yourself, how far do I back up to ensure I get a good blade load? I usually start off, depending on the material, like if it's light sandy material, I can back up about a tractor length and get in there and have that blade full. but very heavy, wet, cohesive material, clays and stuff like that. Usually about a quarter to a half a tractor length is all the farther you want to back up and get that slot going. And once you get it going, you work yourself back. Again, watching that distance on medium tractors, getting the back there about 250 feet, that's about as far as you want to go. We start increasing more fuel consumption and less productivity, and our efficiency falls off. So now we have all these berms out here. So imagine if you can see my cursor, I started in this end, I went front to back, all the way back, and I started another one and come back, and I worked this all the way over to the side. Now we got to clean off all these berms so we can start over again, take the next lift out. So many people just come right in the middle or somewhere and just start pushing straight. Well, it's very inefficient when you start pushing that berm out. And again, that berm is only as high as about a third of the height of the blade, or at the top of the where the side rack starts. So it's very inefficient to do it this way. What we like to see, or what I've learned over the years, is use the straddle method, where you basically get a blade full and then you turn it and push it over against the other one and use that slot. One thing I have with this particular video here is he started in the middle. Now, I'm not saying that we've done that just for demonstrational purposes here. If I finished up over here, I'm going to back all the way up on the edge, and I'm going to load each slot. I'm going to back up and take each little portion and work across the back and push that material off, okay? Then I'm going to turn around and then work off the left side of the blade, push that material off, come over, load that blade, and push it off, and just zigzag back and forth using both sides of that blade so I don't wear one side of the blade out or one side of the tractor or trunnion ball or anything. And when I get done, I'm ready to start my second cut here and start moving up again. Most efficient. If we can do that right here, this is really not considered productivity because we're cleaning up the site, getting ready to take the next cut out of here. We can minimize how much time we're spending just doing simple things like cleanup. Again, that's going to help us save that anywhere from 3 to 20 cents a yard. Ripping techniques. Some of us rip, some of us don't. If you ever rip, one of the first things I learned, my grandfather used to duct tape my foot to the D-cell pedal and said, don't ever take it off. Don't ever rip an high idle. About half to 2/3 throttle, just enough to get that machine moving. Rip downhill if you can. If you're real hard material, do a cross rip section. You rip it one way and do a 45-degree angle the other way. Try to get through that. Low idle to minimize track slip and so forth. The first thing we learn here is when we start putting that ripper in the ground is to, if we got an adjustable ripper shank, to pin that tractor to the ground. Pull that ripper tip forward, and you will hear that machine run much more efficiently. And you will do a technique, what we call pinning the tractor to the ground. So you get a lot more power to the ground, a lot less track slip. And I demonstrate when we're ripping, and I'll extend and then retract that ripper through the same cut, and you can hear the inefficiency in that tractor. You hear that engine pick up, it doesn't run right, the track starts spinning. As soon as I pin that tractor to the ground and get that weight and horsepower down where it's supposed to be, what I call the hunt zone, you can hear that tractor hunker down and really get something done. So try that. Drag pass, I see so many people with adjustable ripper, they'll leave it back like that. And this is like nails on a chalkboard for me. You got to pin that tractor down. We wear this tip off. It's very inefficient. We don't get enough done in a hurry here, and we're costing ourselves some money. Shank too long, obviously, we're going to pick that tractor up. We're not getting the weight and center of gravity down where it's supposed to be. We're lifting the back end of the tractor off the ground, and it's not as efficient. You want this ripper housing right here to be parallel with that ground. Rip too low, too. And I don't want to do that. Here's an indication where we've got an adjustable ripper shank itself, where if we start running it too low, I'll look out here, and if I see material underneath here all worn off, obviously I know that ripper shank's too short. Minimizing track slip. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't say enough about that. That's why my grandfather used to duct tape my foot to the D-cell pedal. He never did want to hear high idle. If that tractor went into high idle, you can rest assured that I would have a correctional type discussion, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So keep that enough power to move that machine, but not spin the tracks. And obviously, speed is a killer in this type of situation. Again, anytime we think we're going fast, we're having more productivity, you can wear that ripper shank off in a heartbeat by going way too fast. Ripper techniques, just wanted to touch a little bit on that. So those of you that do rip, hopefully learn something on that. Those of you that haven't ripped, maybe someday you have to rip a project, just remember that, these things. Excavators, a lot of us run excavators. Proper digging range. I'm going to talk about bulk earth moving here first before we get into underground. But that, swinging out 35, 40 degrees, this is where we want that, the power range is where we're most effective, right in through here. Now, digging in trenches, I do this, just done this 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm doing a full reach, but I'm doing a clean out pass. That's a little bit different story than hogging material. And again, bulk earth moving is about performance and production. And then when we get into underground utilities, more and more about precision and perfection. Two totally different worlds here. But the digging position itself, I always try to dig at a 45 degree over my front idlers, not the drivers. Always have the drivers in the back. Unless I learned from a couple good operators here that I work with constantly. Sometimes if I'm working downhill, I will have my drivers up front so the tracks don't collapse or anything like that. But generally, those drivers are in the back so we don't damage the seals and the sprockets and so forth when we're digging over front idlers. But if we can dig at a 4 to 5 degree angle, in other words, at about 10 and 2, that's where we're most stable. Okay. Now, when we're looking at hydraulic excavators, 3 top ways to increase productivity. We can achieve 10 to 15% higher productivity when our bench is a correct height versus too low or too high. Now, too low, I can understand if we're chasing our cut and we're getting down close to where the grade line is, and I'm only got to go 2-3 feet, I can understand that. But we're doing bulk earth moving like this situation right here. We got a mass excavator set up. Well, then that bench height should be about the same distance as this pin right here. And that's the height of that bench is where we need. Anything higher than that, too much time and be inefficient. Here's a 15 to 20% higher productivity when those trucks are spotted on the floor and excavators on a bench. Here is the absolute most important one that I deal with daily, swing patterns. 5% higher productivity when an excavator swings from 60 degrees versus 90. Times I've seen 120 degree swings. Possibly 35% more productive on that excavator. If I can get you down to 15 degree swings versus a 90, it'd be 35% more productivity. Now, these are numbers that have been proven by data time and time again. So one site I was on not too long ago, they were swinging on average about 115 to 120 degrees. Once we got them swinging down to 15%, the owner of the operation, this gentleman was a very kind individual, he flew over the site every day. So he knew exactly how big this hole was getting every day. Well, when we got done, he flew back over there that night, and he couldn't believe how much more material, how much more efficient this operation was just by shortening the swings. So here's another example that done over the years of looking at a 49-ton excavator. This is a 349 versus a 374. So here was a situation where the operator or the owner was trying to make do with a smaller machine instead of a larger one. Why? Larger machine was gone, couldn't use it. This is all he had left, and didn't want to rent one. He didn't have another job to support 2 large excavators, so he just wanted to use his 349 on this type of application. But you can read all the numbers here. Making do with a smaller excavator with a poor pass match, 29% less production. So remember on an excavator, the things that we're always looking for here, number one I look at is what is the load time of that excavator, what I call the bucket face time. How long is that operator spending in the cut to load that bucket? I'm looking for 5 to 7 seconds. That's what I'm looking for. That's the sweet part. That's what we like to see. Sometimes I've seen this up around 10, 15, even 22 seconds. Well, then I got to ask myself, well, help me understand here. Why are we having so much problem? Is it the hydraulic power? Is it the material we're working in? Do we pour a shot? That goal is to load that bucket in 5 to 7 seconds if we can. That's huge. And overall cycle times, load, haul, dump, return on that excavator itself, about 18 to 22 seconds maximum. Usually about, we see Caterpillar says 4 to 6 passes on a truck to get it full. I like to see it done around 3 to 4 if we can. But that 4 to 6 passes, that's optimal on an excavator. If we can get her down, usually we can shave some time and get her down where you 3 or 4 passes and get that truck on the road and get it moving. Truck loading techniques. I spent a lot of time here. What's wrong with this setup that you see right here? What do we see? Oh, he's being serious. That's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, he's doing his machine. That's what he's supposed to be. Right here, we got the trucks on the same level as the excavator. Biggest thing I see is we're bunched up here too. But the biggest mistake that I see right here, and I know mistakes is a harsh word, but I'm going to use it here. We're swinging fully loaded bucket over that cab. We never, ever want to do that. Fortunately, a rock or something's going to come off that bucket, hit that cab. We don't want to do that, not do that. So what we did here is we switched that excavator around so it was back on this side, and we had a trench here. We put them trucks down below, got him a little bench, and got him moving, and got this site back up and running again. Pretty good efficiencies. What's wrong with this operation? Now, once in a while, we've all got to load big material, rocks. Do it every day. If we can, pad that truck first with loose material so that rock's riding on something. But watch the oversized material here. Now, you're going to see what's going to happen here. That's pretty good operator to get that rock in the bucket in the first place, and then try to get in the back of the truck. Okay, that's going to be a treat and a half. Probably need to bring in some sort of a hammer and bust this thing up or so forth. But this is one of the situations here where we can damage the struts on the truck and the beds and the cylinders and all kinds of different things here. So watch that. And then after all this time and effort, we get this. Oh boy, now we got to start all over. Now we got this thing down in the work zone. What are we going to do with it now? Watch the surroundings. There's another situation. Now, again, this can happen to any truck. It doesn't have to, red, green, blue, or yellow. We're all the same here. We all got good equipment. But one of the things that I've seen on this job site here, unfortunately, this truck was moving. It was raising its bed, and it had frozen material with the tailgate. Folks, we've really got to watch that material and with the tailgate on there. And then what we was trying to do here, what this operator was trying to do is minimize support equipment. So as he dumps his load, he was backing up and using the tailgate to push this material over a high wall. Added stress to the truck frames, the fulcrum points in the back that hooked the bed on, and the hoist cylinders were failing dramatically, not to mention rollovers here. And again, it can happen to anybody here, so we've got to really watch this. It pays us to have a knockdown tractor in that site. And what do we got going on here? This particular site, there was carryback in the bed. That's material that's retaining in the bed. And so this operator would back up and slam on the brakes and try to shake that material out. One of the things I learned over the years, anytime I got some very heavy, wet, cohesive material and it's sticking to the bed, the first thing I can do is apply body heat to that bed if that's applicable. Even on our semis, if we can get body heat in that bed, that just does a phenomenal job at carryback. And then there's so many types of materials we can put in there now for cohesive type materials. There's a favorite of mine. It's called Arco plate. It's a very high molecular steel. It's a little bit pricey, but it gives you the flexibility of shedding that very heavy wet material and also still running some abrasive materials like rocks and so forth. So just different things like that. Watching the carryback. The different loading methods out there, we have a drive-by loading technique, a modified drive-by, over the rail, same level loading, and out of the pocket. Let me talk a little bit briefly about these loading techniques. Again, here's one way that we can really shave some time off of our loading, or help increase our profitability and move more material. Let's talk about each one. Drive-by loading. So you can see where that truck's basically going to pull straight forward. That operator is going to swing to the left, right into the back of the truck and load that bed. This is on good short hauls. Now, this could be on a dump truck. This could be on a highway truck, off-highway trucks. These techniques can help us if we have the real estate. I'll get back to that. So drives in, swings by, load them. It's more important about how many times we get that truck moving than we is on the fill factor here. So good short swings, and 90, 120. In this fashion here, it's very, very important. This excavator has those tracks indexed at about 30 to 45 degree angle from that face. This gives us stability of this machine. It's very stable, especially on a weak angle of repose. An operator one time that his shoulder sloughed off, and he was set up this way. And he very seldom he had any problems at all. He got right out of there, no problem. He heeled down, backed his machine out. If his tracks had been parallel, he would have been inside that truck and would have taken a lot more time to get him unfreed and so forth. A lot more dangerous that way. Drive-by techniques, good for those shorter hauls. There's a good example of a drive-by loading technique. Again, larger situation here. It could be applied to anything. Truck pulls straight in, tracks are indexed. We got good fill factors here. One of the problems I have with this technique is when I'm loading, I have a tendency to push that material too far to the right side of that truck. We want to make sure that truck's fully loaded and make sure that load is centered. Another thing I look for is when we're digging, are we digging from the bottom up or from the top down? This is very loose material here, so this operator has no problem getting down in here and hogging that material. Done a very good job. But when we get into that heavier type cohesive material, it's probably more important to be digging from that top down range than it is from breaking that face all the time. Again, looking for 5 to 7 seconds load time. This guy is about 2 to 3 seconds. Phenomenal, getting it done. Okay, here's what we call a partial drive-by. That truck can pull forward and then back in on a 45-degree angle. Or if we got good material down here and can drive on it, and this operator's done a great job of cleaning this face up, they can drive right in and exact last moment make a hard right turn and be able to get that truck loaded. Now, the most important thing on truck loading techniques is whatever you're loading, when it's fully loaded, make sure that the truck can leave straight and not have to make a 90-degree turn or a hairpin turn. That is so hard on our trucks. I don't care if it's a dump truck or if it's an articulated truck or a semi. If we can make sure we're pulling straight away when fully loaded and minimize our turning, this is huge. Saves a lot of wear and tear on the trucks itself. Again, partial drive-by, good for those little bit longer hauls. This is a good example here again of a partial drive-by. Operator is going to get loaded, had his tracks indexed. Again, it's a very weak angle of repose. Indexes his track, spots his bucket, truck knows where to go. He's going to back up, and no swings. On a drive-by technique, you're typically swinging 90 degrees plus. As he gets his truck or his excavator loaded here, he's going to back that truck underneath it there. Look at where his swing pattern's down. He's down less than 60 degrees now. Honks him off. There we go. Short swing patterns. Maybe that'll work for you, maybe it'll not, depending on your site. Over the rail. Again, all we're doing here on these longer hauls, again, going out there over half a mile, now it's more important to me to make sure I have, number one, the proper fill factor in the back of this truck, whatever it may be, semi or whatever, and to make sure that that load is properly centered in that truck. That is huge. So typically we use this over the rail type technique. My favorite, I got a video here, sorry about that. Gives you a good example here. I'm gonna play, there we go. This is a Mass X. That's a big machine. Tell you what, you can get a whole lot done in a heartbeat. Now, you got a big bucket on that. That's an 8 3/4 yard bucket. Sometimes trying to fit that in the back of an articulated truck or whatever it is you're loading, you're going to have your P's and Q's about you here. Okay, there's a little bit something to think about. Matching that bucket. This is a technique I always try to use if I can, because now I can shorten my swing. This is called out of the pocket. So I can bring this truck in here like this. I can load on this side, swing right. And I know if I load on this side, I got to swing left. We always say we don't want to swing left because we obstruct our visibility with the boom and so forth. But when that machine is out of you and I'm out in front of you and I'm only swinging 15 degrees, I can live with that, swinging. But I can load on both sides of that machine. And while I'm loading this truck can get into position. And then when I honk this truck off, I load this truck. The effective width of my bench is much wider now, so it minimizes my tramming if I've got the real estate to do that. Here's a good example. This is a St. Louis airport job. Those of you that's ever landed on that one, we had toad scrapers running there, articulated truck, rigid frame trucks, and so forth. And this is how we set that job up, loading out of the pocket. So we could load one truck, get them going. It took our transition time down to equaling what our loader cycle time was. And that's the goal. Truck transition time, I'll get to that here in a little bit. Getting a new truck under the spot is key. Now, let's talk a little bit to something that may help us in the underground utility market. 3 ways I like to set up a job, if we can, because we're typically alongside of a road or we're very constricted. We haven't got any real estate to work with here. 180 degrees over the rail, 180 degrees through the gate, or again, out of the pocket again. Here's 180 degrees over the rail. If I've got traffic on this side of me, I can't pull him in this way, so I have to dig and swing all the way around and put him in the back of the truck. Now again, underground utilities, it's about precision and perfection here. I'm not worried about production as much as I am as hitting the gas line or whatever may be down here. But unfortunately, this is the longest technique to load a truck that we can think of here. And unfortunately, we have to face this every day. I understand that. If we can, and if we have real estate to do so, if I can pull that truck in where I can swing right through the back instead of lifting up over the side like we're here, I can shave 1 or 2 seconds off my overall cycle time. Again, you have to have real estate to do that. That's a Cinderella world, especially in underground utilities. We don't have that luxury as much. Here's one thing that I started practicing and going out on sites, working with people. If we can, again, if there's traffic over here and I'm digging up this material, if I can bring that truck up alongside of me, position him up, not to where I'm going to swing over his cab, but where I'm swinging over that rail, now I can load him and look right into the back of that bed, see where my load's positioned, make sure he's fully loaded or not overloaded. Unfortunately, if we're using on-highway trucks, we've got to watch that. It just helps me see so much better. And if I can, I can bring another truck right up in here. Let's see if I got another. Yeah, that's about it on that. I had another situation where if I'm just starting a cut, and if I can park another truck on one side, I can park one on this side and one on the other side. And again, take my exchange down to my loader cycle time. Something, it may work for you, it may not. But one thing I've learned in earth moving, I'm learning every day, trust me, I still question things I do day in and day out. But one of the things I look at is what can I do if something is not working the way I want it to do? Let's try something else. And what if that something else doesn't work? I can always come back to what I'm doing. Father told me years ago, he said, you can learn by your own mistakes. And again, I hate that word mistakes. It's such a harsh word. But there's no reason why you can't learn somebody else's missteps as well. So if I see a neighbor or somebody else doing something, hey, that didn't work. Okay, note to self, that isn't working correctly. Don't try this. But the ability to try something, at least try something. And if it don't work, okay, I can go back to what I was doing. But if it does, maybe I can shave a few cents off my cubic yards moving. Wheel loaders and a load and carry application. Again, let's watch this distances. A small wheel loader is about 100-foot maximum load and carry, wherever I'm doing here. This can be, especially in where I always abuse this, is working with backhoe loaders. Carrying too far. The farther we go, the less productivity, the more wear and tear on a machine. Loading first gear, load straight into that face. Oh my goodness. So many times we do an articulated dig, and that is so tough on everything. Carry that bucket low when it's loaded. Use proper speeds and ride control and so forth, whatever your machine is equipped with. Make sure operators know how to use that. Here is another one, is operating tips on where to position that truck. Always like to back that truck in at 45. I don't care if I'm loading rock. I don't care if I'm loading manure or whatever it may be. Coming in at a 45-degree angle, I can back up and very quickly hit that truck. I want about 1 to 1.5 wheel turns out of this machine when he backs up here, and 1 and 1.5 wheel turns when they dump into the bed. A lot of times I'll tie a pink ribbon on the valve stem so I can see what's going on. You don't have to paint the tires. You just type a pink ribbon on there. That's huge. Good operators, they can start anywhere and know exactly where they're going to be. I always try to start loading behind, right here at the truck and work myself away from the truck. So I will load short and work long. I've seen good operators come in here and start long and work short, and then they can get that truck right over here next time. I tried that one time, and oh shoot, now I got a pile here. I got to pick this up, and then my truck's out of the way, and I'm too far away. I'm not a good operator. I always like to start back here and work myself out. Next time I can move that truck over here. I can minimize my wheel turns and have a tight V pattern here. There's a video. I'm going to skip through this thing because we're running out of time here. I want to talk quite a bit about truck exchange time. Now, what is that? This truck gets fully loaded and honked off. I start the stopwatch. How long does it take for this truck to get under there in the first bucket dump? Again, a good acceptable exchange time would equal my wheel loader cycle time. Wheel loaders, cycle time's about that 30 to 32 seconds. The bucket face time, how long am I taking to fill that bucket? I don't care if this is a backhoe loader or a wheel loader or whatever, about that 10 to 12 second range. If I am taking a little bit longer than 10 to 12 seconds to load that bucket, something's wrong here. What can we do, to make this more efficient? Maybe it's the shot. I don't know. Maybe it's the material, something. But let's try to keep that face time down around 10, 12 seconds, and the overall loader cycle time up around that 30-second range. So many times we see trucks are pulled up here, their back is to the situation, they can't see what's going on. There's rocks laying out here and debris. They back all the way up. I've seen truck exchange times over 2 minutes. Way too inefficient here. We can tighten this up. I like to see this truck right here watching the operation, see what's going on. As soon as this truck or this excavator hits that, doggone it, the wheel loader hits that pile, I got a good idea where he's going to be. When he starts coming in rear view movement, I'm going to pick up the speed. He's going to back up and turn and get ready. I'm going to pull up about 1 to 1.5 truck widths away from this loader, and I'm going to pull about a half a truck length past it. I'm going to very quickly C-turn right in behind that bucket and line my rail right up with that bucket pin. This can apply to articulated trucks, rigid frame trucks, on-highway dump trucks. Exchange time, getting that truck under there is very critical. Again, operating time 12 seconds. Try not to try to have your bucket loaded by the time your lift arms are parallel. I don't care what the wheel loader is or whatever it may be. When your lift arms are parallel, we should have that bucket loaded. That's the key there. Avoid spinning the tires and lugging that engine and so forth. Very quickly. Wet rocks cut easier. Try to keep that floor maintained and clean. I was in a site the other day where we was in the yard and they were loading again rocks and chips in the back of a dump truck, and there was chips and stuff laying all over the place. Just cleaning that site and minimizing the tires, everything is huge. It's huge. Truck placement, the load placement in the truck, making sure it's not too far forward or not too far back, and the side load of that thing is unreal. This is where, again, on a drive-by loading technique with an excavator, even with wheel loaders, every time I load a truck and send it on its way, I want to make sure that truck is, I look at that load and I say, okay, this is what I want. I don't want this because I'm going to have stress all the time on this side of the machine. Huge. Now, I want to end up. We've all got Labradors out there. We've seen Labradors. Beautiful animals. Love them to death. Labrador recognition. There's your yellow lab. There's your black lab. There's your chocolate lab. And has anybody ever seen a meth lab? There you go. There's your meth lab. That's old Rufus. I got a kick out of that one. Folks, I can't say enough about knowing your surroundings, knowing your materials. Plan for the unexpected. That way you know what to do. Some people will criticize me and say, well, you're being, pessimistic here. No, I'm not. I'm being optimistic. Father always taught me never back yourself in a corner. Plan for the unexpected. So you got a plan. You know exactly what to do to get out of this thing. That's critical. That's planning ahead. That's how I look at it. What do you think of this shot? My brother sent this to me. His buddy went out and harvested this animal, and he was by himself and wanted to capture the moment. So he put his camera on a stump and took a picture, and then he proceeded to process this animal. And about 3 days later, he decided to look at his camera and see his pictures. Yeah. He said, I wonder why the hair was sticking up in the back of my neck. Know your surroundings at all times, please. And again, I hope today's conversation, I could go on. I tell you, I wish we had more time here because there's many things I've learned that I'd love to share with you. And I love learning. And more importantly, is I love sharing what I've learned with you all. So we can shave 3 cents off of a bank cubic meter or bank cubic yard. And if we can get up to shave this type of material off, this is much more money in our pocket. So again, folks, I hope you've gotten something out of this little thing. And I sure appreciate that. And there's my information here. So, Bob, I'm going to turn it back over to you and see if we have any questions.
Thank you, Knobby. That was fascinating. I've learned so much just in the last hour listening to you. If participants have a question, this is the time to ask them. You can either do it through the next to your name on the participants list. There's a little hand that if you click that, we can unmute you, or you can always just unmute yourself as well, too. If you have a question, please state your name and your company, and of course, in your question as well, too.
And trust me, no question is a bad question.
Speak now or forever hold your peace, I believe is the term. Any questions at all?
And Bob, if nothing comes up, there's my information up there. Folks, please feel free to send me an email or give me a shout. I would love to chat with you. I love sharing what you've learned, what I've learned, and so forth. And don't be afraid to ask any question whatsoever.
Knobby, thank you very much for your time today. Present this information to our guests. We'd also like to thank Caterpillar for the very kind support of NUCA and its programs. We could not do any of this industry outreach without our national partners' participation. A recording of this webinar will be made available to all registrants the next day or two, and will also be available on the nuca.com website and on our YouTube channel as well too. And thank you for your time today to join us for Webinar Wednesday and supporting NUCA. Our next webinar will be held Wednesday, June 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and please enjoy the rest of your week.